Welcome, one and all, to another edition of the Defo Show with Luby here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, brought to you by Water Cleanup of Florida. Do you have a water leak and can't find where it's coming from? Oh no! No worries. Call Water Cleanup of Florida at 954-579-0356 for immediate assistance. With over 60 years of combined experience between Michael, Robert, George, and their team, they're prepared to handle all types of leak detection issues. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. After the leak has been located and repaired, Water Cleanup of Florida will then clean, dry, and fully restore the damaged areas. Water Cleanup of Florida is fully licensed, insured, and certified to provide the one-stop shopping busy homeowners and business owners require. What that means is, you're like, okay, aren't they insured and certified? Well, obviously, businesses are insured and certified to a certain extent when they're cleaning up water or fire damage. However, they actually have contractors that are certified, insured, to not only help you get rid of the damages, but to make sure they actually do work on whatever issues you've had in the home to make it look brand new. They did that for my wife and I. It was fantastic. They'll do the same thing for you. They service Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. Again, just call Michael anytime on his personal cell phone, 954-579-0356. That's 954-579-0356. Check out the website, WCUFL.com, on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, at WaterCleanupFL. And just for good measure, you want to check them out on Google. Over 80, probably today they have a lot more than that, 5-star reviews. Water Cleanup of Florida. If you have the schmutz, they have the guts. It's been sort of a schmutzy year for the Miami Heat as they were coming off a run almost to the NBA Finals. Just short there. A lot of injuries, a lot of question marks, and horrendous shooting has left the Miami Heat in the play-in tournament as the 7th seed. They will be at home against the Atlanta Hawks, who they fared against well this season and in the playoffs last year. But it is a play-in tournament. We talked about that, Defo and I, today with Mr. 5 Reasons Sports, Mr. Miami Heat reporter, the guy we go to for our source for Miami Heat knowledge, Miami Heat discussion, and some NBA playoff chatter. The one and only Ethan Scoop Skolnick right here on his 5 Reasons Sports Network.
We welcome to the show. The handsome devil down there at the bottom of your screen is the great Ethan Scoop Skolnick, who, is... I think, maybe you would go toe-to-toe, one-on-one-A with Winterman, most knowledgeable guy about the Miami Heat here in town. I don't even think Andy Ellisberg knows as much about this team as you do. Scoop, how are you, my friend? Good to see you.
I'm good. I'll go hair to hair with Winterman.
No, you're in good shape in that category compared to Winterman, who, he's already, left the category. I wanted to get into this with you before we get into the Miami Heat and their playoff possibilities, and then take a look maybe around the rest of the league. But this Dallas thing, how does it strike you? We talk about tanking, and it's kind of like, people talk about like reforming gun laws after a school shooting. I don't mean to put it in that same category. Obviously, we're in the toy department, but or human rights atrocities with the Saudis. When they're discussing taking the money on the Live Tour or all of this other sports washing that goes on, but nothing is really ever done about it, and there really are no consequences for any of the people involved, and nothing comes from the league. But what do you make of it? I mean, that Dallas just flatly says we'd rather not make the playoffs. I saw there was a contingent Knicks first round draft pick that might have factored into it, and when you put that in the equation, it actually maybe makes a little more sense that Dallas did choose to not play in the play-in tournament or trying to make it. But what do you think? I mean, what does this do for the league, if anything, in terms of its image? And, how do you feel about it?
Well, there are a lot of elements to it. The first thing is the only reason Dallas is really in trouble here is they said the quiet part loud, right? Like that's really the issue. I mean, a lot of teams tank, or maybe they frame it as repositioning, or they try to protect assets that they've traded. Like you mentioned, the Knicks pick. That's really what this was about. It was
Porzingis trade. Yeah.
Right. It was about protecting the pick that was protected through the top 10. So in other words, they didn't want to make the playoffs so that they would keep that pick. But there are a few things here. First thing, the fact that Dallas did this is ridiculous because Dallas just traded its entire bench to make the playoffs this year. to get Kyrie Irving, who doesn't even appear he's going to stay. I mean, he basically walked down in his exit interview yesterday without talking to the media. It doesn't seem like he's intending to stay in Dallas. So that's the
Wow.
first thing. Mark Cuban made a horrible trade again, and this is a pattern with Cuban now that he cannot seem to figure out how to complement Luka Doncic. He made the trade for Porzingis. They didn't get along, and then Porzingis left and had a really good year with Washington this year. Brunson, they could have signed Brunson to an extension half of what the Knicks ultimately paid him. They decided not to do it, and then when the time came, he left for New York. Now, people can say, well, he was going to go anyway because his father has relationships up there and played there, but
Yeah.
I don't know that he was necessarily going to go. It seemed to me like he wanted to stay in Dallas. They just offered him the money. And then, they didn't require Luka to play any defense. They got Christian Wood and wouldn't play him. So there's a whole bunch of different issues that went on with Dallas that make this specific to Dallas. Now, as far as what the league can do about any of this, it's really difficult, again, except for the fact that Dallas said it out loud.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's and you look at some of these teams. I mean, the tanking. I mean, Utah is a perfect example of this, right? Utah surprised everybody and itself by playing so well through the first 40 to 50 games of the season, and then basically decided, wait a second, this is not what we intended to do.
Yep.
And like Lauri Markkanen played only like 3 of the last 14 games. That was
Wow.
their all-star.
He was
So
an all-star.
they just did it quietly, right? Like there were a couple games against the Heat. Like Utah had one of these, Detroit had one of these, where it was just like there was a certain point of the game where you just realized like the other team decided they did not want to win.
Right.
And
Pull the
so,
plug.
right. So I don't know what you do, Defo, except I guess you set an example with Dallas, but they've tried some things. Like they changed the lottery so that the odds are the same for the first, the worst 3 teams, so that you don't have, teams trying to get more ping pong balls once they get into the top 3. They've tried some things, but it's very difficult. I mean, you can't have a league that is saying, well, don't tank, but at the same time, they're streaming Wemby games before he comes into the league. I mean, what are we doing here? You're basically saying this is what you're tanking for,
Sure.
so go tank away. But oh wait, if you say you're tanking, we're gonna fine you or take away your picks. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of stuff that's going on the political scene. It's just as illogical. Yeah, I was going to say only MAGA Republicans could make a case that this was a good thing.
I'll let you say that, Devo. I'll let you say that.
It seems kind of radical. And I remember getting this theory a long time ago from the great Eddie Kaplan. I've become a huge proponent of it, and that is, these leagues need to stop rewarding futility.
Mm-hmm.
And instead provide every incentive to win every game, somehow, and just eliminate the idea that the worst team is going to get the best chance to get the player that's available. And in this case, this Zemby cat who is one of those guys that you're thinking, my God, it's like LeBron James. How can we lose if we have this guy on our roster?
I'm with you. I feel like what they've created with this parity thing, which is sort of based on the NFL in large degree.
NFL should do the same. I mean,
I agree with you, but what's happened here in the NBA? I mean, look at this season. Now, a lot of people would say, okay, this is interesting. You've got every team in the West has 43 wins, basically.
Yeah.
You don't know who's going to come out of it. Every team is flawed in some way. You don't really have a super team. Like Denver's really good. Do you trust them in the playoffs? Memphis is going to the playoffs with a bunch of injuries. They've had the jaw issue this year. Sacramento, nobody trusts Sacramento. Nobody's picking Sacramento to beat Golden State. Golden State won 9 games on the road the whole year. They're flawed.
Yeah.
Okay. The Clippers are going into the playoffs without Paul George. Okay. Phoenix looks great when Durant plays. How long is Durant going to actually play? How long? What do we know about that group? I mean, literally every team has issues except probably Milwaukee, honestly.
I'm going to say Bucks.
And maybe Boston and Philly's issue is its coach. But, I mean, if the fact that everybody is kind of, okay, good, but not great, that sounds good now, but then the league does better with ratings when there's a team that everybody is shooting for. When there was a Bulls, when there was, LeBron's best teams, etc. So, this idea of going for parity, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I feel like the league is going to shift back the other way. And if you're going to shift back the other way, then I'm going to agree with you. Reward success. And now they've added this stupid tournament in the middle of the year, which nobody understands, which is going to start next year.
Well, what is the point of that, though?
To sit players during the real games, which to me is just idiotic.
What is the point of the tournament?
I don't
What
know.
is that? I
I don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't
What is
know.
that going to prove?
I don't know.
I don't know. I've literally looked at it. I'm not saying that facetiously, Devo. I've literally looked at it, and I'm like, I don't know what they're trying to accomplish here. I
Right.
don't. They're trying to reward the Washington Wizards during the season because that a team like that is going to win it.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't even understand the concept or the need
no.
for it. It seemed like things were fine, the way they were. But I do believe that even though I'm not usually a big fan of bastardizing the playoffs by adding more teams, that by putting this play-in tournament aspect in, that they did make the last few regular season games more meaningful and more exciting, and more cities were involved. All right, so we end up in one of those games, which
Mhm.
everybody says nobody wants to end up in the dreaded. It's always the dreaded playing game. How dreaded, should Heat fans feel? How much should they be dreading this? Because I don't know what the actual numbers are, but it seemed to me that the Heat did very well against the Hawks this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, they did actually. If you go back to the playoffs last year, they won 7 of 9 against Atlanta, and it actually goes back a little bit further. They had a weird loss up there last season, um, where nobody for Atlanta played and they lost the game. But
Yeah.
which is what the Heat do. But typically, they control Atlanta, and I don't. I mean, Dejounte Murray had one really big game against them this season. But Trey has been useless against them. Last 9 games against Miami, he's shooting 32% from the floor, 18% from three. They have a formula against him, which is a lot of Gabe Vincent, who he does not handle particularly well, and then a lot of Jimmy Butler. They'll throw doubles at him. They'll throw traps at him. They have Bam coming at him on switches. He is look. Could he have a game against them? Absolutely, but I do think they're in his head. I think actually, I would say if they're in one player's head more than anybody in the entire NBA, it's him.
Wow.
So this went as well as it could have, I guess, to get the 7 seed and to get the home game. I also do think that what we saw yesterday, which was everybody kind of being able to have some fun and relax, and it was perfect. I mean, it really was legitimately perfect, like the way that everything played out for somebody who everybody in the organization reveres. Uh, I think that was good. They have a practice today, which I'm heading down to, and I feel like they can refocus. I don't think they'll lose on Tuesday. I don't. They're 5-point favorites. I think that's it. I would feel differently about Toronto. I would feel differently if they were playing Toronto. You don't want to have to see Toronto if you lose to Atlanta. I don't think that's a good matchup for Miami, but I think they will beat Atlanta. And then the issue, then they'll get some time off. Actually, they won't play again until Saturday, so they'll have 3 days to recharge and take that flight to Boston, which they know what it's going to be. Like I'll say, I mean, look, as good as the Celtics are, they know what the Celtics are. They know the matchups they have in favor against the Celtics. They obviously played the Celtics as well as you possibly can last year without beating them. They did beat them a couple years ago in the playoffs, and I even though I do believe the Celtics roster is better than it was last season, particularly with Brogdon, I think that they at least think they can compete with that team. I'm not going to pick them to beat them, but I do think they can compete with that team if they shoot the ball well.
Well, and you just said the key thing was, and that's really the difference from last year to this year. It's outside of PJ Tucker, it's the same friggin' team. Last year
Yeah.
they were number 1 in 3-point shooting.
Right.
This year, either last year they just were above the mean, and this year they regressed, or they fell off a cliff. Whatever you want to call it. This year they were like bottom 5 in 3, maybe even worse than that.
Yeah.
Look, the Hawk game, I feel like they'll win fine, but again, the Celtics have been top 3 the entire year, and people were giving them championship favorite odds. It doesn't feel like they'll win the series, but what is this? What is this season? Like, what do you do with this season? Seeing that the team that was one shot away from the finals is in the play-in and deserves to be in the play-in the way they played this season.
I don't think that anything that happens in the playoffs is going to fool them at this point. I feel like they got a handle on their team once it got healthy. And now they kind of know where the shortcomings are, and they know they need to upgrade. The issue is how, because they're going to go into this offseason capped out again, and really pressed up against the luxury tax. Like it's almost unavoidable this time. Like Mickey is going to have to pay. Like there's just, I mean, you have the contracts of you have 4 guys, okay, making premium money, and a 5th in Duncan Robinson, who if you don't move is making significant money. So. People talk about, okay, are you going to re-sign Strus and Vincent? Well, that comes down to luxury tax. It doesn't come down to salary cap. I mean, the reality is, if you decide not to sign them, there's nobody who can sign in their place. Like that, you're signing them above the cap, and you will have to replace them with minimum players. I mean, unless you reshuffle the rest of the roster with Lowry, Robinson, etc. So I don't think anything's going to fool them. I think that they know right now that they need to get Jimmy more help, and I really think that that's what kind of has changed this year, is that I don't think they thought that by the end of this year we'd still be talking about it in the context of Jimmy. This was supposed to be the year that, to a certain degree, Bam and Tyler took the torch. It was happening in the first half of the season, and then it stopped. And we've done a bunch of podcasts about the idea of whether it's a zero-sum game with Bam and Jimmy. That it seems like when Bam has his best moments is when Jimmy takes a step back, and then when Bam's not doing anything, that's when Jimmy starts to press forward, and then it becomes sort of self-fulfilling, where then Jimmy's not getting Bam the ball, and it's just they're not additive to each other offensively. They are defensively. They're not offensively. And so they're going to have to find, either Tyler's going to have to become it, or they're going to have to find another piece that makes up for that, where one of them is additive with somebody else, and that there are going to be things that are staggered there. I don't think it's personality related. It's just that in the modern NBA, name me one of those teams I just mentioned as I went through the list where their two best players are not outside shooters. At least one of them is not an outside shooter. It's not Golden State. It's not the Clippers. I mean, obviously, both Kawhi and Paul George, can stretch the floor. It's not Phoenix for sure. Okay, Durant and Booker. Okay, it's not. So I mean, Milwaukee. I mean, yeah, okay, Giannis, but you've got Middleton, right?
Yep.
So you don't have this kind of scenario either, and obviously Brown and Tatum both can play on all three levels. So I just think that they're going to have to figure out, okay, is Tyler that guy that makes each of them better individually, or are we going to have to go find somebody else who can do that? And then what role players do we surround with? I think they have come to the best possible rotation they can have for this season. I like moving Strus to the lineup, gives them some spacing. He's shot the ball 41% from three over the last 6 weeks. So he has begun to pick up his game a little bit. And I like having Lowry and Love off the bench because they're stabilizing players, and you're not asking him to do too much now. And Martin off the bench can do a little bit of everything. So he's had a very good year. So I feel like they found the best possible rotation. Getting Oladipo out of it had to be done regardless of his scoring when nobody else plays. But I think they're probably a 5 or 6 game out against Boston. And I think when that happens, they'll try to move Kyle, they'll try to move Duncan, they'll try to reset. But what they really need is they need something like what kind of sort of happened yesterday, which is somebody like Dame Lillard to say, I'm done where I'm at. Now the next step is I want to play in Miami.
Yeah, that's
and I've said that to you guys all year. That's ultimately what needs to happen. And then it's up to them to figure out how to make it work to get the guy.
Doesn't sound overwhelmingly promising. All I can do is picture, Cody Zeller on one of my big white stiff teams, and he was going to be. It looks like you're seeing the 40 and over league at the Poznak Jewish Center when he comes in a game, especially with the mask. What decade, Scoop? Just one last thing on the Heat. In what decade did the Heat next possess a draft pick? Do we know?
No, they have one this year.
Oh,
they do. They got that tricky little thing called the Stepien rule, which I'm sure you're familiar with, which is where you can't trade your picks in consecutive years. But they do have a pick this year, and I this is a good draft actually. It's a pretty deep draft. I don't really start following college basketball till the tournament. I don't think Eric Spoelstra watches the college basketball game till the tournament. But from talking to some of their scouts, they like the draft and they think they can get a player similar to a Tyler Hero type player somewhere in the teens. Now, will they keep the pick? We'll see. I mean, they have got limited assets. You can take the pick and trade it for someone else. They have a little more flexibility because of the trade they made with OKC. 2 trade picks. And they also have Jovic from last year, who they like. And I know people don't think so because they basically shelved him the last 2 months of the season. But they do like him. But he's also a possible movable player for them in a trade. So they'll. Look, I think they need to add the athleticism to the roster in general. I think athleticism and shooting, everybody's going to talk about size. You can find functional size in the NBA for what fits. I mean, like you're joking about Zeller, he's been fine. Like it's just they need athletes. I think that's what's missing. I mean, other than Bam and Caleb, they don't really have like pure athletes on this team. And I think ultimately it just makes the game easier. They'd be better in transition. It's a little bit more a modern NBA type thing. I think they'll find one of those. there's a couple, as usual. There's a couple kids in Kentucky they like, and to me, if that's worked, go for it. you know,
Yeah, sure.
Because when they haven't done it, they've
Yeah,
passed on guys like Maxey and
and
Quickly,
Booker. And
Let's
Booker.
and
not
Booker,
forget Devin
right?
Booker.
Ziva's
Yeah,
favorite Booker, yes.
yeah.
Right. I mean, they've been producing the best guards in the league now for the past 5, 6 years. So why not just stick to it?
All right, a couple of things quickly, Scoop. We appreciate your time as always. But as we get into the playoffs, naturally, I've been following the New York Knicks in some detail through my subscription to the New York Post and the Nets as well. And that's kind of remarkable. Jacques Vaughn, gets to the postseason and it doesn't have to worry about a play-in game
Mm-hmm.
after they completely dismantled and remade their team. They continue to have a modicum of success or a reasonable amount of success and stayed ahead of the Heat
Mm-hmm.
in that situation. The Cavs and the Knicks. I mean, there's a lot of optimism surrounding the Knicks and the fact that they were the fifth seed. Are they in for a pile of trouble and a rude awakening against the Cavaliers in that series, in your opinion?
It's going to be a fun series. I think the teams are reasonably evenly matched. I think in a year we won't be saying that because I think the Cavs are on a definite upward
Yeah,
trajectory.
Mobley.
I just don't know if they're ready. And that's the thing. Like Mobley's terrific, but he's not
He's
in
young.
his final form yet. Mitchell obviously has had tremendous moments in the playoffs. He hasn't really been responsible for Utah's failures. I think we're seeing now who was responsible for Utah's failures all those
Mr.
years.
Minnesota.
The guy who may or may not play in the play-in game for Minnesota coming up and Gobert. I think that, like I said, in a year, I think Cleveland's going to be more of a force than they are now. Um, to me, the Knicks comes down to one thing: which Julius Randle are they getting? Are they getting the guy who this year emerged again as an All NBA type, maybe third team type player, or are they getting the guy who was a complete disaster in the playoffs? The last time he was in there. So we'll see. We'll see if he's developed the counters, and also RJ Barrett can be very, very up and down. Brunson is great, and Brunson's going to be great. And look, that was a steal. I mean, if you just look at what they and it's as I was surprised. I'm surprised honestly, but it's a great contract. It's a descending contract. He's going to be really good. JB Bickerstaff hasn't been in these kind of playoff series. Tibbs has. I think that's an advantage for New York. I'm going to pick Cleveland. But I think it's a 7-game series. I'm kind of contradicting myself from the beginning of our conversation here. But the first round series are going to be fun, actually. Because of the parity. It's kind of when you go forward. But I mean, you're looking at the Knicks Cleveland series is really good, and then out west, you're looking at potential Memphis Lakers in the first round. You're looking at Clippers Phoenix. I mean, if Paul George can even make it back for the second half of that series, then that one becomes interesting. I don't know who's coming out of the 8 necessarily against Denver, but then the Sacramento Golden State series, again, everybody's picking the Warriors. Everybody's picking a team that won 9 games on the road in the regular season. So to go win a series where they're starting on the road, even though I do think they'll win it, and then you go past that, you're potentially looking at Memphis Golden State in the second round, which – I mean, Dylan Brooks and Klay Thompson. Everybody wants to see that right
That'd
now.
be great.
So there is some stuff going on, but I'm gonna take Cleveland. But I think it's going to be a very, very competitive series. I think if there is one advantage is the fact that Tibbs has been in these situations before. I think that will help them.
Scoop, always great, man. Brilliant.
We're the man.
No wonder 5 Reasons rises right to the top of all media outlets. Under your auspices here. Fantastic job, as always, Ethan. And we thank you so much. I hope you had a great Easter with your daughter. Was that a little egg hunt in play there? Or?
No, we did a little breakfast, but then you do what? They're playing these games at 1:00 on Sundays on Easter. So now I was down there. I Easter egg hunted with UD. So that was
a quick thought on UD and his career. I mean, the last 10 years, he essentially has been, we were saying, a DNP CD, but, it obviously meant a lot to the organization and still does.
Yeah. The thing I said about UD consistently is this, covered thousands of athletes over the past 25 years. There's one athlete who was with the team for any length of time, not 20 years, obviously, but any length of time, who I never heard another teammate say anything negative about.
Wow.
Ever. And to me, that is the great tribute to him. I mean, to be respected by your colleagues to that degree. And I think what you saw yesterday was why he's earned that respect if you can't do anything anymore, if you can't play, if you can't push guys in practice, then it's just a bunch of stories, right? It's just a bunch of what you did against Dirk
Sure.
and all. And that is why, and I think what we saw yesterday is why he insisted on continuing as a player instead of going to be a coach, because it is different when you're telling other guys what they should be doing when they're seeing you put in the work and do it in practice than when you're an assistant. I think we saw it yesterday. I mean, look, and the other thing I think we saw was everybody makes fun of this NBA player or that NBA player, and every NBA player will go get you 100 points at the JCC. Okay, I mean, like
Yeah.
that's you know what I'm saying. I mean, I think we underestimate sometimes the level. I mean, it's not just that UD made some jump shots; he literally got up on an alley oop on the break.
That was great.
It's a perfect way to end, and to have Dwyane there too, and interacting with the crowd. And I'm just gonna say this one time, and I don't know who's watching it. Okay, get him back in the organization.
He doesn't want anything to do with the Jazz. He's been here like all year. Every time the Heat had a big moment, like you're seeing Wade interjected in, which is great.
Seeing with like DJ Khaled,
what the hell are they doing with that? Like
he wants to be here, and I understand it's business. I get it. I understand he may have wanted a deal that was not a reasonable deal in terms of. But to me, and it's not my money, and I understand everything that's gone on with Carnival and everything else. But I'm just saying, like, find a way to get him back in the organization. I'm sorry. Like, I watched him for literally 20 minutes after the game, interacting with fans. He is a unique superstar who is absolutely the most, I know we talk Dan and everything, and I get it. Dwyane Wade for this generation is the guy, okay? And I just do not understand how he's in Utah. I just don't. Everybody's explaining the business part of it to me. I just find a way to get him here. He wants to be here.
Yes.
The man wants to be here. It's just ridiculous.
Well, I mean, Dwyane Wade, Gabrielle Union. I mean, you think of stardom, you think of Miami. You're not thinking of. I mean, what is this? The freaking Osmond family? That he's having to dial into there. Utah. There's nothing going on there. Nothing that matches the sort of vibe that these people give off. So it'd be great to get him back. Excellent job, Scoop, as always. Looking forward to the playoffs. I hope we can get you on throughout the playoff season here, because it's always fun to discuss basketball or anything with you for that matter. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate. Follow the Defo Show on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel.
There it is. It's a whole new thing. It's great.
We got Defo on 5. We got
Defo on 5. We got all kinds of stuff.
We're all over the place. Look at you. Always a great time talking to Ethan Skolnick. As you know, you check him out on his podcast daily here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We also do Defo on 5 almost daily here on 5 Reasons Sports Network, and get you our South Florida content from our show, the Defo Show with Lou. You can check that out live Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 on the South Florida Live Network. Also on Facebook. You can also check out Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. It's another show we do, food-centric and more, with food critic extraordinaire, Mr. Let's Eat South Florida Facebook group, Mike Mayo. Check that out on South Florida Live. Monday through Friday from 12 to 1. Appreciate Scoop, Ethan Skolnick, joining us today. Very honest with the Heat. I never put anything past them. They actually played well against the Hawks. They played well against the Celtics. We shall see if that continues. Check us out again tomorrow morning, 7 to 9 on South Florida Live. The Diva Show with Luby in here, South Florida content. The Diva Show with Luby on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
Play the ponies in style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.